Welcome to Dope People. Happy Friday, everybody. Thank you, DJ O, for getting us started.
Thanks, y'all. As always, it's my pleasure.
It's a
Looking
pleasure to
forward
have
to
you.
the sesh today.
Love it. I didn't want to stop that last song. That Henderson was getting me. Everybody that's joining, thank you for joining. Thank you for making time on your Friday. I hope you're having a beautiful day. We have a dope episode for you today. Dope People is our weekly series where we feature people of color, minorities, women, LGBT, people that are just doing dope things in the game, and we want to bring it to light. So thank you for joining. Today I have, as always, my co-hosts Peter and Lulu. Peter, how you feeling today?
I'm good. It's nice and sunny. Had a week of relaxation. I'm ready for this dope episode.
Good man, good man. Good to hear. Harlem representing. Lulu, what's happening?
Representing Mexico right now. Pretty excited after living out of a 22-inch suitcase for the past 5 months. I moved into a new place, so feeling really grounded and feeling really amazing. I want to also riff a little bit about what Jacoby said. We feature people that we feel inspired by. So when I first met Drakari stepping into the San Francisco dispensary, California Street Cannabis Company, there was just such a beautiful vibe. It was so paying homage to cannabis culture and paying homage to San Francisco. So when I walked in, I was like, we have to get Drakari on the show. So everyone, I'd like to welcome Drakari Donaldson, CEO of California Street Cannabis Co., based right in the center of San Francisco on Nob Hill. Welcome, Drakari.
What's up, everyone? What's up, everyone? It's an honor to be here. And man, Oscar, I did not know you were gonna get that funky with the intro.
Yeah, man, great to have you. Oscar's always holding it down. We appreciate you, live from Brooklyn.
I thank you guys. I appreciate it. I gotta wake up too, man.
Yeah.
Drakari, thank you for joining us, man. It's really a pleasure to have you. I'm excited to learn about your journey from dishwasher to CEO, and we're gonna get into that. But first, Peter, what's happened this week?
Some pretty cool developments happening this week. One being the FDA just announced that it is looking for a contractor to test CBD products throughout the states. They're going to test up to 3,000 products, so be on the lookout. If you're an analytical lab, submit your petition to be that contractor. That's a lot of business. But also be on the lookout for whatever brands you consume and what their test results end up saying.
Are we gonna have some efficacy in the industry? Is that what you're saying?
About time.
Regulation. You get to know what you're putting into your mouth or however you consume your CBD. So
always ask for a COA. I mean, as a consumer, always ask for that certificate of analysis from any CBD company, and you can do a little bit of calculation on your own to see what's in those products.
Yeah.
The snake oil will be exposed soon.
Yes, exactly. Another newsworthy, we've got a lot more momentum towards the MORES Act, which is a cannabis legislation and policy that Kamala Harris is actually a lead sponsor of in the Senate. And that has received a lot more traction in the past couple weeks. And then this week it got announced that 4 attorney generals and a lot of law enforcement officers are asking for a vote on that. So hopefully we'll see some kind of, on the national level, some reform for cannabis policy. And finally, another cool little tidbit, we like to talk about all the drugs in the space, but there's a new field trip app for those of you who partake in psychedelics. There's a new app called Field Trip Health that will check in on you throughout your trip with different journaling prompts. And they also have different meditative visuals and audio sounds to help guide you throughout the trip. I personally probably wouldn't use it, but I don't know how you guys feel.
Lulu, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm thinking like the first rule of when you're going on a different dimension is never look in the mirror and never look in technology. So I don't know if you know, in your middle of your trip, if looking at a mobile phone is something that's going to be helpful or not. But I could definitely see having something to maybe prep for it or journal about it and meditate. Sounds interesting. Check it out.
No, yeah, I think that that's a pretty interesting idea. But I definitely, I remember, you know, my first time tripping, and I started looking at my phone, and it was just like a loop playing over and over and over again. And literally, my friends are just looking at me like he's been sitting there for 30 minutes doing the same thing. It's just like, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like a Kindle screen would be better. Like softer on the eyes.
But it's good to have innovation in the space. I don't think it's practical. I think it was just like a bunch of corporate guys got together and like, oh, let's make an app for this. Canada especially is having a lot more movement on the technological side of helping with psychedelics and their adoption worldwide, as they led the way with cannabis.
Well, we'll see. If I find myself in a situation to test it out, I will let you guys know how it goes. That might
No doubt, follow Canada.
For sure. All right, let's get into it. Thank you, Peter, for the little recap of the week. I really want to start to dive into Drakari's journey. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Yeah. So I was born in San Francisco, inner city. Grew up in the, I believe it's the southeast corner of San Francisco in Betrayal Hill. Raised by a single mother. I'm the eldest of four now, but as I was growing up, you know, it was pretty much just the three of us and my mom. And you know, I guess really my journey started when I met Ben. So Ben is my mentor. I've known him for about 12 or 13 years now. And it's kind of crazy just like knowing that he's seen me grow up, you know, through adolescence into adulthood, and, you know, he's seen me become the man I am today. And it's crazy. So I met him through the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. You know, I was kind of just looking for someone who I can, you know, hang out with, play sports with, who can kind of like teach me some things about life, I guess. And, you know, I just kind of wanted something like exactly like an older brother, since I didn't have that, and I didn't have like a male role model or anything at the time. So, you know, he didn't force his way into my life. He kind of, you know, we took it one step at a time, and, you know, we would do things like he would take me to the movies, he'd take me to baseball games, camping. He took me on my first college tour, which was basically a drive down the one. And we stopped at a bunch of different colleges, UC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Cruz, Pepperdine, and many more. And it was a pretty fun experience. We definitely bonded over that trip, but, you know, we basically attended each other's milestone moments. You know, I ushered his wedding, which, you know, he actually had me wear a kilt. But it was interesting because I actually learned that, you know, my last name is Donaldson, which apparently is a Scottish last name. And so we did some history on it, and, you know, we actually ended up finding like the appropriate pattern for my kilt, and even got the appropriate pin, which is crazy. And, you know, I haven't done the research yet to see if I am a little Scottish down the line, but, you know, it could be a possibility. But ultimately, you know, Ben was kind of just there for me. He was like a major pillar in my life, and really made himself available. And then, you know, shortly after meeting him, I met Duncan. And I wasn't as close to Duncan growing up. It wasn't actually until maybe the last like 3 years to where like I actually really developed a really good relationship with Duncan. But, you know, I used to walk his dog. I used to play basketball with him, and you know, we would play like flag football with their friends, stuff like that. But Ben and Duncan, when I met them, they were working on opening up their first bar called Tonic in San Francisco. And I'd say it's a pretty legendary bar, and it's what started their, I mean, they didn't start a franchise, but it's really what started the movement of them opening a bunch of bars and, you know, getting us to this point. And so basically, they opened up Tonic, and then they went on to their second bar to open up Bullet, which is a pretty well-known bar now. And I started there at Bullet at the age of 15 as a dishwasher, and I really just I just wanted some money in my pocket. My mom wasn't able to take care of, to give me everything I wanted, and so I needed a way to put money in my pocket without going to what my environment was showing me, which was like, drug dealing or, stealing or stuff like that. And I definitely want to avoid that. My mom raised me a little better than that. And so, I worked my way through every position, just excited and always ready for the next step, looking for a way to move up in the ranks, to earn more responsibility and, take on more challenges. And so, I went from dishwasher to bar back. I worked the door. And then by the time I was 21, I became a bartender. And then, shortly after that, I want to say it was about 6 months, but shortly after that, I became a bar manager for 2 of their bars, Tonic and Bullet. And it was a huge, huge learning curve. Definitely had to learn how to manage my time a little bit more, and just kind of learning how to manage people and how to be more of a people person. Growing up, I wasn't the most social. I wasn't really out there. And so as I took on that role, I really just kind of learned how to start to relate to people and feel for people, and kind of just learned how to be myself. And so then, throughout that whole time, I was also attending UC Merced. So I went there for 4.5 years. And so basically I was commuting back and forth. I mean, I lived in Merced, went and was attending class during the week. And then on the weekends, I would commute back to San Francisco, crash at my mom's place, and, work and just try to save up as much money as I can. And so I would do that maybe 3 out of the 4 times a month, or 3 out of 4 weekends a month. And I did have to, I missed out on the college parties and on the campus events and hilarious experiences that my friends have, but I mean, I did get to experience some of that, but I would say it was all worth it. It was a sacrifice to get to this point in my life. And what it really taught me was how to work for a better life rather than, ask for one and be given one. So I could definitely say that Ben and Duncan have been teaching me that ever since they met me. And it's been an amazing experience.
So this is before, we haven't even got into cannabis yet, right?
I haven't even gotten into cannabis.
This is just building the foundation, right? From I think you said 14 or 15,
Mm-hmm.
right? Putting in the work, doing the sacrifices. And so before we get into cannabis, what are maybe the 2 or 3 things that in your foundation were essential for your role today?
I would say, as in things I learned that were essential, I needed to know. Being able to relate to people and manage people. People in general don't like to be told what to do. They
Guilty.
also have, they have their own limitations that you need to kind of understand. You need to understand their personnel and understand, I guess, kind of how their vibe is and how they move. And you can't, some people don't react well to you, flashing on them. And some people actually take that better. If you're more stern with them, then they reciprocate that better. And just kind of learning how to put yourself into somebody else's shoes. And that's basically working from the bottom to the top. That's what you learn. You learn that there is no job that is too low for you. That's not the mentality I've ever had.
So that people learning how to work with people, but also that humility.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm
Okay.
gonna add one more that I read, Drakari, from one of the posts that you had on the website, which is the power of saying yes. And I thought that was just a really beautiful summary of, as you were talking through your life and that write-up. Just talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, what I really mean is the power of saying yes to kind of what you need and not what you want. Of course, people you're gonna, whether it's you want a new pair of shoes, or you want these things in life, these materialistic things in life, or you want, some type of friendship with some person, but it's more like you need to ask yourself, what do you need? And provide yourself with those things rather than what you want, because what you need is going to prepare you for the future. It's going to prolong the gratification, whereas what you want, it's just instant gratification. It's gone in a minute. There's always the next big thing out there that you're going to want. So that was a big part of working my way through the bar industry, and kind of just being able to say, I know I need to take these steps in order to get myself into a position where I'm ready to take on more responsibility. So.
Love it. Okay, so you're kind of going through the process of the bar, right? You become a bartender. You've learned how to work with people. You got humility. You say yes to what you need. Then where do we get to the dispensary? How do we jump into cannabis?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say Ben and Duncan got tired of me working under them. I would just say that they wanted me to start something of my own, and so it took us 2 years to get the dispensary open. And I would say when they first brought the idea to me, I didn't believe it was going to happen. I thought that it was something that was more of a dream, and and we were going to attempt to do it, but I didn't think that it was going to actually happen as quickly as it did, even though it took 2 years. And so once we got the ball rolling, and I start seeing the construction of the building happening, and then it really hits me and it starts to become real life. And luckily, we were in a period of moving Tonic to a new location. And with that, because I had been managing the 2 bars for quite some time, they felt that I was ready to actually join them as a partner. And so they gave me a percentage of the new Tonic that opened up. And I basically became an owner of a bar. And that was like my first business that I actually owned. And it taught me a lot of things. It taught me just kind of like you have to be able to own that you are an owner of something. It's a different mentality. The way that you respond to people, the way that you handle issues is completely different. It's even more different than being a manager. Like you have the final say, and you have to learn to not take no for an answer when it comes to some issue that you're trying to fix, or some company telling you, oh yeah, well we can't do this, or we can't give you access to this. But it's like, if they're providing a service, then you need to understand that they're providing a service. So you're paying them for something. And it's just more so having that understanding that you're the boss. It is what you say, and that's just kind of how it has to go. So.
Okay, and in that journey, I think there's something really important here about the relationships that you built and working for people that wanted to see you succeed.
Yeah.
And I think not everybody has that. One, it's good fortune, but it's also a testament to you and building that trust and that giving them the confidence in you. So how did you give them the confidence in Drakari to take the next step for the bar?
I think it was just kind of in my work ethic. Them seeing that I made myself available all the time. I put work first, just because I know that what the ultimate goal is. And also, I guess, just being responsible, being there and available. That's what I would say was kind of put me in that position. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have ownership in the bar, right? Mm-hmm. The mindset has shifted. You now have to change from being a manager to an owner, right? And all the things that come with that. And then what's the next step in the journey here?
I just learning how to be an owner, I guess. is the next step. I don't know, you want to clarify the question a little bit more for me?
Yeah, sure. You guys, if I remember correctly, got one of the equity licenses,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so how did that happen? What were the steps for you guys to take there, and why did you even change from the bar industry to the cannabis industry?
Yeah, so basically what happened was San Francisco created this equity program, which basically was designed to right the wrongs that the war on drugs had on minorities specifically. Of course, the way it's written, that's not, other people are able to take advantage of it. But basically what it is, you have to meet three of 6 different criteria. And if you meet those 3, then you go ahead and you register as an equity applicant. And what that allows is for you to basically be first in line to own a cannabis business in San Francisco. And so it allows you to jump the line ahead of anybody who doesn't meet those requirements. It also provides, they help you out with funding for the licensing process, things of that sort. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but right now I believe you need at least $1 million to open up a cannabis business, and even then you're definitely taking a few losses with taxes and all of that, and then startup costs, and you end up, like I said, it took us 2 years. We were paying rent on that place without making anything for 18 months. So so I got into that program. We had some trial runs to basically apply for our location and kind of see what were the questions that were going to be asked on that application. And we were just kind of on top of it, trying to be in the know all the time. And we worked through that. We worked through that process. It took a while, but it was worth it.
Are there any? No, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think, having those bars and having that neighborhood, like integration and, permanence, helped with getting those licenses as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in general, coming off as, you don't want to be a greedy person, and being able to, so coming from the bars, what that taught me is, it taught me a lot about kind of giving back to the community and how important that is in order to get to where you need to be. I mean, of course, you want to be genuine when you're doing it, and you want to support these organizations and parts of the community that may relate to you or you actually support and agree with. And so, watching Ben and Duncan run and operate their bars, they came up with plenty of ideas to give back to their community, plenty of ideas, such as like guest bartending, where like you can bring in a group of people who have never poured a drink before, and they bartend for a few hours and raise tips, and all those tips will go to whatever charity they want to donate to. Also, just like pledging to give back a certain amount of funds or a certain amount of profits to specific organizations. Also reinvesting time, your own time, into giving back to kids. If I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Ben and Duncan, who gave their time to teach me and to help me grow, into a man. So it's huge. Giving back to the community, it's huge. It breaks the cycle of poverty.
And I think some of the most innovative compassion programs that I've seen is something that you guys started. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that I've never even heard of that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about that, and it's actually been doing really well. We basically, what we did, we partnered with the Brownie Mary Democratic Club and Weekenders Pre-Rolls. And basically, so the Brownie Mary Democratic Club, they're an advocacy group for the legalization of cannabis and for like the end of the war on drugs. And Weekenders, they're a pre-roll company specializing in like the perfect CBD and THC blended joints. And so the purpose of creating this program was to provide low-income LGBTQ and HIV positive patients with access to safe, quality cannabis. Right now, like with taxes, with the 27% tax on cannabis, there's a lot of people who can't afford it, but it's something that they need, and it's not fair. You shouldn't have to give an arm and a leg just so you can get some medicine. It just doesn't make any sense, especially a medicine that was built on the inequalities and injustices that the war on drugs had on minorities, who are the people who kind of need it the most, right? And so we just wanted to provide an avenue to be able to supply, people like this, the ground workers who kind of set the frame for the legalization of cannabis. We wanted to provide a way to give them, affordable quality cannabis.
I think that's just really beautiful and speaks volumes to everything that, you, Duncan, and Ben, and all of your projects are about. And what I read, I saw that in Forbes magazine, they did a write-up on that Hall of Flowers as well. And it's cool to also see that first initial step of something you guys created. I've seen other brands, jumping on board too and wanting to participate. So thank you guys for leading the charge on that.
Yeah, we're excited about that. Like I said, it's really taking off. We've had the pleasure of already working with Sweetwater Farms, Triple J, Vera Wellness, Emerald Bay Extracts, which creates like an RSO. And, we plan to work with a bunch of other brands in the future. We want to be able to give things back to the community, monthly, quarterly, and just keep it going.
I wanted to ask, in your pivot from the bar industry to the cannabis industry, how'd you go about your cannabis education? Or like what people did you try tapping into, or resources out in San Francisco? Or like any groups or people?
Yeah. I was no stranger to cannabis. Throughout high school, I dabbled and definitely had my fair experiences, but owning a dispensary, or being actually involved in a dispensary, it's more about kind of consulting and really giving somebody what they need, versus kind of like everybody wants to get the highest THC, or get something that's going to get them completely stoned, and it's like we're not in that time anymore. People, microdosing is actually one of the biggest things that I became a fan of, is just because it's something that gets you going, keeps you going through your day. But yeah, it was a big transition. It's a completely different substance, and again, it is a controlled substance. So, the same things apply, having to learn kind of the laws and regulations behind it. Having to learn just about the product in general. So you just start to learn more about, like, it's not all about THC. There's terpenes involved and things like that drive somebody's high. There's all of these things that cannabis can be used for. And the way I started to really learn about it was, before opening the dispensary, I followed Duncan's footsteps and was hired at Shambhala. It was then called Shambhala. It's now called Mission Cannabis Club. I was hired there, and I pretty much just shadowed the manager there. I actually became pretty good friends with Peter. He was the manager there. And then also got my experience as a bud tender, learned kind of how to figure out what it is exactly that is going to help with somebody's ailments. And that's where I learned that it's not all about recommending the frostiest product, right? It's about giving somebody what they need.
And what would you say is the difference from your company to the other ones, the competitive dispensaries in your area?
We're a small business, and we're true to our community. We aren't here to make a franchise. We're not here to be the biggest shop in the world, the biggest company in the world. we just want to basically, set our mark in our neighborhood and be able to give back and kind of serve as an example of what the cannabis community should be like. Right now, a lot of big companies and corporations are just trying to buy up as many licenses as possible, and all they care about is getting rich, making more money, and just taking over the industry, where I feel like it should be more about, being more local, reducing your economic footprint, supporting the small farmers, which is something that we take pride on. Part of our ethos is supporting these small farmers, smaller brands. We don't like to carry products that is outside of a 200-mile radius of San Francisco. And, we care about the packaging. We care about all of that. We care about what the values are of these other brands. We actually look into all that stuff before we bring on a brand, and knowing the background and the history of these brands. So, we take pride in all of that. Our hiring practices are, we're very proud of those as well. Like our staff range from, men, women, LGBTQ, BIPOC. We hire a bunch of, minorities and people who actually represent diversity. One of my good friends, Paul, he's told me before that, diversity is supposed to be a representation of your community. And so San Francisco is so diverse. There are so many different kinds of people here. We feel like we would be doing San Francisco, we'd be doing San Francisco wrong if we didn't hire based on what the actual demographic of San Francisco is. And so, like I said, we try to embody what San Francisco is. We try to embody, the importance of community and equality. And that's what I think differentiates us from other businesses.
We're gonna have to take a On the Revel field trip to San Francisco and visit. But someone who's visited it, I was just really surprised to see a lot of new brands that I've never seen at other dispensaries or retail stores in California. So I think it's just really beautiful that you're willing to give these smaller businesses a try versus, the big, $100 million funded groups that come in and just pump all of this, product into the store. So that's been really cool. And all of your budtenders are so nice and really, really well educated in a really approachable way. And I think that's something that just really stood out. Sometimes you go to a store and they're too cool for school, or they're going to recommend what they want. And I've just had a really great experience just talking to budtenders, having them ask me more questions. So that was just really cool. And the other part is like seeing an owner working in the store. We in New York are used to the big what do we call them? MROs, the big retailers, the big, really funded. We only have 10 that are medicinal. So we're only used to kind of like the mainstreamed version or the kind of like medicinal version where you don't really see culture and you don't see the neighborhood involved. So that was a huge, a really beautiful vibe that you guys provided. And just the fact that during COVID that you guys opened, we dropped in and you guys were all working. All the owners were there working with their, arms in everything and being part of everything. And that was just, something we don't really get to see a lot. So there's heart there. So thank you, Drakari, for bringing all of that.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate that. And, 2020 is definitely a hell of a year to open up a business. Luckily cannabis was deemed essential, but I couldn't be more proud of my staff, the resilience that they've held with us, the support that they have for me. And, it's pretty much all family and friends in there. We're starting to hire a little bit outside of that, but we wanted to start off with a group that we can trust and a group that would easily understand what we're trying to do. And, that ultimately what that is break the stigma of cannabis, show that, everyone uses it. It's not just these, hippie stoners or African Americans. Everyone uses it, and it's crazy that it took this long for people to realize that. I remember one time going to a smoking lounge, and I see a guy in there on his laptop in a full suit. It's around maybe like 2 p.m., 1 p.m., and he must be on lunch break or something like that. And he's he's on his laptop, like answering emails while smoking a joint, and it's just like, yeah, everybody does it. It's something that people need to understand.
Absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about working in 2020. Like, the world changes. The world finally accepts cannabis as essential. But what are some of the crazy things that happen at the dispensary that you guys had to adjust to? The things they don't tell you in the CEO handbook of a dispensary. Like, tell me some of those crazy stories.
We opened up the store, and for the first few weeks, it did exactly what we wanted it to do. The overall, basically atmosphere of it was, we wanted it to be, if a novice person walked by, or someone who never even consumed cannabis before walked by and was interested in learning anything or walking in, it was open. We had like an open storefront, and we basically didn't want to be like a majority of the dispensaries that were already in San Francisco that were, like, there's gates in front of it, a huge security guard with a mean face, checking IDs, and the staff kind of just like, okay, so what do you want? So we wanted to provide this open, fun experience for people that was attractive for everyone. And of course, when COVID-19 hit, the world flipped upside down. We then had to practice these new health procedures, and we were only allowed to have 2 to 3 people in the store at a time, stuff like that. And so that really kind of cut off what we were trying to do. And so we had to pivot, and we had to change our angle. So what we started to do actually was, Sebastian, he's our head of marketing. He came up with the idea of doing Instagram live sessions that we post. We do them weekly. We basically meet with brands and talk to brands about their products, talk about the process in making it and what are the benefits of it, and also just kind of their overall experience in starting the brand. And what that did was provide content. We were able to provide content to people without them having to actually be in store. And we were able to continue to educate, and that's a big part of breaking that stigma. So we were able to do that, and, that started to take off, and it's doing pretty well. But then shortly after the shutdown happened, all the riots started happening and the protests started happening, and we were robbed. And I remember it was, I believe, I want to say it was the 30th of May or March, forget which month. But I remember getting that phone call from one of my employees letting me know, hey, like, I just got a phone call from the business next door, letting him know that there were a bunch of guys running into our store, ransacking the place. So I live 3 blocks away. It's like 10:30 at night, and I end up walking up there, not knowing what I'm expected to see, not knowing what the store looks like, not knowing if they're still there. So I went in there. Luckily, it was empty, but the place was destroyed. Glass everywhere, product gone. We lost upwards of $11,000 worth of product, and on top of that, maybe another $15,000 in damages. And of course, insurance isn't covering that, so that's kind of ridiculous. But we were able to start a GoFundMe page, and also we had a lot of support from the community and from neighbors who wanted to come out and purchase and support us and show us that they want us to be able to continue to thrive in the neighborhood. And I was super grateful for that. It was amazing. And so, yeah, we were able to battle through that. We actually ended up opening the next day after the looting happened. I ended up me, Duncan, and Ben ended up spending the night pretty much at the dispensary. We were there till about 4 a.m. and then I had to come back that same morning around 10 or 11 a.m. to, get the store up and going. So it was an experience. And like I said, I couldn't thank my team enough for sticking with us through that, through all the long hours, through helping, clean up and deal with, stuff that maybe maybe the owner should be the ones having to deal with those issues, right? So
I think just hearing that, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that, but it shows those things that you started this conversation with about learning to deal with people, being humble, and building relationships in your community. You see the groundwork that you put in earlier come back to help you when you needed it. Your community came to support you, your team had your back. And I think that's just a testament to like the great work that you and your team have done in your community. And I commend you guys for that.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I have some questions from the audience here. For those of us that are joining on Facebook or YouTube, you can ask questions by joining the Zoom meeting. So from the audience here, how was your experience being a POC owner of a bar different than being an owner in the cannabis industry?
That's a great question. I'd say the bar scene is more of throwing a party. Yes, customer service is huge in the bar scene, but I kind of think it's a little easier to skate away and have the party kind of distract customers and people, and take the attention kind of off of me. It's more about them enjoying themselves and having a party. Whereas the dispensary, I feel like it's easier to look at the dispensary and see what the dispensary is doing and the practices that the dispensary has put into place, and then look at the owner of the dispensary and see how those things correlate, how those things go hand in hand. So not to say that owning a bar isn't directly corresponded to who the owners are. I would say, I just think that at a bar, you have different bartenders who are throwing a party every night, basically. And so that party needs to be, it's going to be a representation of the bartenders who are working there. At least that's how it was in the T&G family. We had these subtle guidelines of, kind of like what kind of atmosphere to provide, but also it was about the bartenders behind the bar that made the experience, the overall experience. At a cannabis dispensary, especially one where, there's no smoking lounge or anything like that. Yes, the bud tenders do make that experience for people, but the overall atmosphere, I feel like, is designed by the owners and it's put into place by the owners. So it's just more of a direct relationship, a direct correspondence. So.
The other question we got from the audience is around the social equity. And they're asking, is there another way or a better way for disenfranchised people to leverage the cannabis industry to gain financial wealth and equality?
I think right now the equity program is probably one of the best ways to go about it, since it does allow you to kind of jump the line ahead of these people who do not meet those qualifications. However, it is still a bloodbath out there, like in San Francisco, it's crazy to see how many applications are pending and how many locations are in the works. It looks like it's going to be oversaturated, but it at least we understand that the first few dispensaries, the first few cannabis businesses that open up are going to be for these equity applicants.
And on that, what are some of the pitfalls of the way that process currently rolls out? Like, how are people taking advantage of it?
Yeah. I mean, because you only have to meet 3 of 6 different criteria, it's some people just happen to fall in that area. I mean, one of the criteria is, having to have attended public school in San Francisco for five or more years. It's like there's a lot of kids who went to public school not because they were disfortunate, but just because it was a closer school to their place or whatever it may be. You know, the other thing is you have to have, I think you have to make below the median income. You know, again, we live in San Francisco, the median income is pretty high. So it's, there's a lot of people who fall under that. And of course, they're just going to happen to be able to check off that box. Another one is like you yourself or someone in your family had to have been arrested for a cannabis offense. And it's like, you know, like we all know a lot of people who have been arrested or have, you know, been charged for a cannabis offense, being that it's illegal, you know, and there are people who are getting cited or being taken to jail for having, you know, an eighth on them and stuff like that. So it's like, it's pretty common. So with that, there are people who are able to take advantage of this. There's also, you know, as an equity applicant, you need the funds, right? So there are a lot of these big corporations who are just going out there trying to find some random Black guy or some random minority who meets 3 different criteria, and they just basically kind of pay them out like, hey, how would you like to be our equity applicant so we can get this location and get this license? And then we'll cut you we'll cut you a backdoor deal, and you won't have to really, you know, you won't have to run the store or anything like that. But the overall goal is for these people who have been affected by the war on drugs to put them into a position of power where they get to actually decide what happens with their business, and they get to make these huge decisions and be able to provide back to the community, you know, and provide to the specific communities that they want to give back to. So I just think that's being taken advantage of, you know. People are just really kind of, they're all just in it for the money. It's not a true story. I feel like basically what me and my mentors do is we encompass that true equity program. You know, I didn't just meet these guys. I've known these guys for my entire life. You know, they've been trying to help me my entire life, and so it's a completely different story, and that's what the equity program should be about.
On that piece, with national favor for legalization growing, how do you see, or what are your ideas towards equity on a national level? And how do you see that rolling out? What different models do you think would work?
I think equity on a national level needs to be looked at more closely to prevent these big corporations from taking over. Ultimately, this is a medicinal plant that was built on the struggles of minorities, and if we don't legalize it the right way, if we don't put the correct practices into these equity programs, then it is just going to be a bunch of these backdoor deals that are happening. And like we're seeing now, the majority of people in the positions of power in the cannabis industry are white or non-minority. And how are we supposed to expect those people to give back to the people who got us here, to the communities that got us here? They don't care about that, you know? So I think we just need to be a little bit more focused on giving the right people these licenses and these chances and opportunities to be in a position of power in the cannabis industry.
Wow, I love it. Drakari, I want to thank you, man. I really appreciate hearing your story and the way that you embody your company's ethos, your authenticity. I always mess that word up. And just understanding those building blocks and seeing how that has come to fruition in your works. And I really wish you the best in your future endeavors. It was an honor to have you on Dope People. So thank you, first of all, for just being a part of this.
Well,
And I
thank
wanna-
you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I want to say, a lot of the folks our attendees are from the East Coast. And I think like what you guys are doing is a really great example of what equity programs can do, what being part of the community is about. So we continually want to feature more people like you that are doing things the right way, and setting an example and inspiration for those that are coming up in the emerging market. So thank you, Drakari. And thank you for attending our show this week, everyone. I'm really excited. Next week, we have one of the only women in the manufacturing extraction side that I've met. So Katie Stem from Peak Extracts in Oregon is going to come on and talk all about strain specificity. My word that I can't really say. So thank you and have a really great weekend, everyone. And we'll see you next week.